I thought I would put a video together to give a very simple introduction to how to create a program for a DMR radio. So looking at this first slide, this is an example of how an analog radio would work that you would be familiar with if you've never used digital before. With analog, you would expect that if all the radios were on the same frequency and you key the mic on one analog radio, that all the other analog radios will hear you. Now, in the world of digital mobile radio, DMR, the behavior is slightly different. DMR radios all have a radio ID. So in this slide, the radio that's going to transmit has the radio ID of 101, and the other radios are 102, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. If you key the mic and transmit, the other radios won't hear you unless you have the appropriate settings in the radio. In this first example, I've set a private contact of 107. So when you key the mic, none of these radios hear except for radio 107. This is using a private contact setting. If we change that private contact setting to 102, then only this radio would hear you and the others would be silent. This is much the same idea as entering a contact into your mobile phone and then dialing that individual. Only one phone will ring. Now, in the world of radio, you very often want to talk to many people at once, and this is where a talk group comes in. So here we have 6 radios potentially receiving. These 2 are set to talk group 9. These 2 radios are set to talk group 91, and these 2 radios are set to talk group 92. The transmitting radio is set on talk group 9, so only the radios with the matching talk group can hear. In this case, that's the middle 2 radios, and the others will not. If all the radios are set to talk group 9, then all of them will receive when this radio transmits. So this takes you back to the analog radio example. Provided you have the settings correct in all the radios, then you'll hear just as you would in analog. Talk group 9 is for some reason, I don't know how the standard was established, but talk group 9 is used by amateurs for simplex communication, and so you'll commonly set your radio to talk group 9. One more point to cover. The talk group is only one of the things that needs to match. As we've mentioned before, each radio has a unique ID. These don't need to match. Your radio should be set to a different ID from the ID of other amateurs. And all DMR operators throughout the world should have a different ID. But if you want to talk to another amateur, you should both be on the same talk group, you should both be on the same time slot, and you should both be on the same color code. Having said that, we can pretty much ignore color code because color code 1 is used for all settings, at least in Scotland. A little bit on time slots. It's just to explain that in DMR, the radios only transmit 50% of the time and then leave a gap. So this diagram here, which is lifted from the Hytera website, shows that this radio here in green would transmit for 30 milliseconds and then pause, allowing this radio here on time slot 2 to transmit during the other 30 milliseconds. And then this radio would transmit again. If you're listening to this on an analog radio, you hear something that sounds like a machine gun. Because the radios behave this way, it means that 2 different radios can talk on the same frequency at the same time, provided that they're working on different time slots. It also means that if you are on a different time slot from the other operator, you won't hear them and they won't hear you. So these things become important when you're programming your radio, whether it's to speak to an individual or to speak on a repeater. Okay, so now we come to the actual programming of the radio, and the software I'm going to use is the software for the Radioddity GD-77. It's version 3.1.1, but the basics of what I'm going to do here are the same for all DMR radios. So there are so many options to configure on a DMR radio, it would take hours to cover them all. What I'm covering here is the very basics of what you will need to program a radio and get up and running. So we begin by putting in your DMR number, which you can find under General Settings, and in here you've got the name of the radio, so you could put your name in here, and you could put in your DMR ID. In Scotland that would be 2354 and then a number. I'm just going to put 999 in just now rather than my own details, and that's pretty much all you need to add on this screen. And then I can close this window. Okay, the next thing you need to do is to start to add contacts. But before you can do this, you need to have a think about which repeater you want your radio to connect to. So I'm going to have a look at the local website for Scotland. And we're going to have a search for GB7EE, which is the Edinburgh repeater. And this will take us to the DMR Scotland website. So this is a good resource for any operators in Scotland. And under here we've got Scottish DMR repeaters, E to F, GB7EE Edinburgh, so I'll select that. And here we'll find the details, the output frequency of the repeater, input frequency of the repeater, and uses colour code 1. It's on the Brandmeister network. And these are the talk groups that this particular repeater uses. So we're going to need talk group 9, talk group 91, 92, 93. So 91 is worldwide, 92 is Europe, 93 is USA. Talk group 9 is used for local conversation. And we'll also need talk group 9. Oh, it's actually it's a private contact 9990 for echo test. This is all on slot 1 of the repeater, and on slot 2 you can connect to all different talk groups using reflectors. That'll be a topic for another video though. Okay, having got this information, we can go back to programming our radio, and we begin by entering the contacts. So opening up this first contact here, we can call this, it's defaulted to a group call, which is fine. So we can call this talk group 9 local, and the number that goes in here is 9. Now the really important thing to point out is that you can type anything in this box, it doesn't matter, as long as you understand that it means talk group 9. You could just call it local if you wanted to, but I find it helpful to also include the number. The important thing is what you put into the ID part, and the other important thing is that it's a group call and not a private call. I'll show you that when I add another one. So that's the first one. I'm going to add some more contacts. Sorry, here. Add, and I want to add another group contact. Let's come up here. I'll click on that, and I want to make this one talk group 91, so I'll call it talk group 91, which is worldwide. So I'll put WW, and this one needs the number 91. Remember, the number is the important part, not the name. Then I'm going to add another contact, and it's again a group call. This will be talk group 92, which is Europe, EU, And again, the important part is the number 92. And I'm going to add another group contact. I need to click on it. This will be the worldwide talk group 93. Sorry, the USA talk group 93, USA, and 93 in the box. And that's done. I also wanted to add an echo contact, and this is a private call. The reason it's a private call is it's just communicating with the Brandmeister servers and telling it to, so I need to click on that to bring that one up. And enter echo 9990, and this is private call 9990. Okay, so this is all I need to begin with. I've got the contacts. The reason to begin with the contacts is when you start to add channels, you can then select these contacts from a drop down list. If you start to add the channel first, you'll still need to come back out and then create the contacts and then go back in and add them in. Okay, before I go any further, I'm going to save this just in case it crashes. And I'm going to call this 2019-03 demo. Okay, so the next part is to create a actual channel. When we go to channel here, and we have a list of pre-populated channels with nominal values that have just been created by the software. We don't need these, and we could delete them all, but for speed I'll leave them in just now. We're going to change this first one then, and this is where we need to know the settings for the repeater. So moving back to the web page, we know that the repeater outputs on this frequency, which means that we have to receive on that frequency. So I'm going to copy that and paste that into the receive frequency here. That's fine. And when you click over here, it copies that across to transmit in the same frequency. But because this is a repeater, it has an offset. So we go back. The receive frequency of the repeater is the frequency in which the radio will need to transmit. So I'm going to copy that, and we'll put that in here. There we go. Now, we also saw on the website, moving back to that it uses color code 1, and they always do, at least in the UK. So we put that to color code 1, and the talk group has defaulted to TG9 local because that's the first one we entered. But if you look here, you can see there's worldwide, EU, USA, and echo. So they're all there, but I'm going to leave this first one on talk group 9 local. Now I need to give this a name, so I'm going to call it EE after the repeater. I'm going to call it slot 1, S1. There's the slot setting there. That could have been 1 or 2, but it so happens we want it on 1, so we're going to leave that. So it's EE slot 1 and talk group 9. You could call that local if you wanted. I'll keep that short so it fits on the radio's display. And that's the first channel created. Now there's a peculiarity of the GD-77 radio that you also need to set the receive group list. This has to be set, or otherwise the radio will transmit correctly, but you won't hear anything. What you need to do is make it listen on the same group that it's transmitting on. Now most radios do that by default, but it's an extra step you need to do just for the GD-77. So to do this, I'm going to go to receive group, and you can see that actually it's already populated talk group 1 into this. I'm going to change the name of this to TG9 local, and that'll be the name of that receive group. And while I'm at it, I'm going to add some more. So I'll create another one here, and onto the second one, we'll make this talk group 91 worldwide and add just that. And I'll create another one, talk group 92 EU, and in there I'll add that contact. And I'll add one more. Talk group 93 USA. Okay. So that's me created some receive groups now. And I'm just going to save. Okay. Now when I choose the receive group, well, you can see it's already, because I altered the first one, it's already changed to talk group 9 local, but I have the other options that I've created there as well. So we'll leave it at that. So this will now transmit on talk group 1, receive on talk group 1, it's got color code 1, it's on slot 1, so we're now happy we've got a channel correctly configured. And this is all we need to be able to start to operate. But just to finish this off, I'll create the other channels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that and paste it onto here. So all these settings, if I click into channel 2, it's taken all the settings previously added. But what I want to do is to change this. We're going to make this one EE. It's going to still be slot 1, but this is going to be talk group 91 for worldwide use, WW. So what I'll do is I'll change the receive group to worldwide and the contact to worldwide, and otherwise the settings can stay the same. I can then copy this and paste it again, and now channel 3 is based on the same as channel 2, so I'm going to call this one EE slot 1 talk group 92 EU, and I'll just change the settings here to Europe and Europe, and that's done. And then moving to channel 4, I will copy what channel 3 had, paste it into channel 4. That's updated now. And just finish this off. So this is going to be EE slot 1 talk group 93, which is US. And I'll change this here to USA and change this here to USA. Okay. We're not quite done yet. If we go back to the repeater website, we'll see that slot 2 requires talk group 9 only. And there's more to talk about here. It uses reflectors to create to connect to different groups around the world, but that'll be a subject for a future video. So we also need a slot 2 talk group 9. So the easiest way to do this would be to take slot 1 talk group 9, this channel here, copy it and paste it. And then click onto that channel. And you can see we've got talk group 9 slot 1. I just want to name that, so I'm going to call that EE, this time slot 2 talk group 9. And the one thing I do need to change is to change the repeater slot to slot 2. And that's me finished. So these other channels I don't need. I could delete these. If I went on to here, channel 6, delete, channel 7, delete. So I can take these out. I would also add the echo channels, but for the sake of speed, I'll leave these out on this video. So to be able to access these channels, if you just write these to the radio now, you won't see them because they've not been added to a zone. The zones are banks of channels, and you can see that by default there are 2 zones on the left here. I don't need one of these, so I'm just going to delete that. And this leaves me with zone 1. Click on that. And these are the channels that are possible to add to zone 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name this as the local repeater, GB7EE. And then I'm going to put all of the channels we've just created in, add. And I don't need this first one. So unfortunately you can't remove it in this particular software, but what I can do is put the others above it. You can't remove it if it's the top one, and this allows me now to delete it. Okay, so channel 17 isn't used, it's the one channel remaining. Now I'll be able to delete channel 17, which I couldn't do before because it was in use. So here we have the 5 channels already created that have been added to the GB7EE zone, which is a bank of channels. So that's the job done. I can now write this to the radio. I'm just going to save it before I do. It's not unknown for the software to crash. Actually, the Radioddity software is pretty stable, but certain other makes, including TYT, do tend to crash when you write to the radio. I'm now going to hit the write button and let that write. And that's basically it. That'll get me operational on GB7EE. The procedure is very similar for other software. You just have to go through the same process. What will vary is exactly where they are on the menu on the left hand side. If you found this video helpful, please give it the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and leave me comments below and let me know what else you'd like to see. I hope to do a future video where we'll look more at programming for reflectors. Thanks for watching.